Hello, shalom, and peace to you all this afternoon. You know, I've alluded to you before, I'm pretty much a nerd. I like to study a lot of things, and there's been some things that I would say have been very interesting, striking developments in the area of quantum mechanics, quantum realm, scientific explorations in outer space. And I intend to report on some of those subject matters. That said, I do think there needs to be at least a baseline understanding of some of the concepts, theories that are involved with quantum mechanics and quantum theories, as well as quantum physics. So, because I care and I'm just a nerd, I decided I'd kind of give you a little bit of information. So, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a breakdown on what quantum mechanics and what quantum physics are. All right? But first, imagine a world where a coin isn't just a heads or tails. It's just like both at the same time until you look at it. That's the strange reality of quantum physics, okay? So what quantum physics truly is, what is it? Quantum physics is the science of the very small atoms, electrons, and photons. It replaces classical physics when things get really tiny. So the movie Ant-Man, that's quantum physics, quantum mechanics, where certainty breaks down and probabilities rule. So everyday life, such as cars, planets, baseballs, that's classical physics. The microscopic view, microscopic world, that's particles and energy, that's quantum physics. So we'll get some core principles down before we go into any other areas or analogies. A wave-particle duality. That's two things, right? Wave and particle. Light and matter act as both waves and particles. The superstition within these core principles are a particle can exist in multiple states at once until observed. The entanglement element is that two particles can be mysteriously connected no matter how far apart. And the uncertainty principle. You can't know everything about a particle at once. Nature sets limits. And then lastly, the observation effect. Measuring or observing changes the outcome. Now, I've alluded to previous posts relative to the observable, testable, reputable act of science. And as I've mentioned, I don't limit that just to biblical study or theology or systematic theology. I've gone across all realms. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the same with quantum mechanics and quantum physics. I'm seeing what these things are show, and I'm lining them up with the scriptures, and then I'm also allowing the omniscient Most High God to impart his omniscient wisdom, knowledge, all that. So, just to give you another analogy, a coin flip is classical physics, heads or tails. Quantum physics equals a spinning coin that's both until you catch it. Another analogy would be a traffic light. That's classical physics, right? Red or green. Quantum physics equals red and green until you look at it. Another example would be a friendship bracelet. Entangled particles are like bracelets cut from the same thread. Pull one, the other reacts instantly. Why does all this matter? Well, we've got a lot of technology, such as the phone device that I'm recording on. You've got lasers, semiconductors, quantum computers, MRI machines, artificial intelligence. All this is the byproduct or the result of quantum physics, quantum mechanics. So philosophy, it supports philosophy as well. It changes ideas of reality, determinism, and causality. A lot of these concepts are within the biblical structure as taught by some within five-point Calvinism, some in dispensational theology, Reformed theology. You just have to be able to decipher it. Now, quantum physics and quantum mechanics has their own system of analysis that they've governed and laws that others have gotten opportunity to present to you, and we'll get into that here in just a second. And now, the last element of why it matters is the cosmos itself, right? It helps explain stars, black holes, and the structure of the universe, as the scriptures do. Or at least the origin and beginning of how it was created. So I've got just a few questions for you. Do you think reality is fixed, or does it depend on observation? Question 2. If particles can be connected across space, what does that say about how connected we are? And 3. Should science accept randomness, or is there always hidden order, such as the spirit realm? Closing thought. Quantum mechanics shows us that the universe is stranger, more flexible, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. It's not just science, ladies and gentlemen. It's a reminder that reality itself is full of mystery. And I think when you tie in the biblical element to include my name and what that represents in an eschatological or prophetic end time outlook, from a typology standpoint, ladies and gentlemen, a type, a pattern that the biblical order or record would indicate, that's, to me, why I do what I do. I'm not just coming on here to report on these things because I just want to be on here and getting likes and getting money. It's of interest to me. It's built into my very core of my being because it's what God wants to do to restore balance in the universe. He wants to restore that on a universal level as well as a minuscule level, particle level. And that is why I have the desire to discover and look into some of these things such as quantum physics, quantum mechanics. So again, ladies and gentlemen, by way of review, we'll go over some of these concepts. Quantum physics or quantum mechanics is the science of how the tiniest particles in the universe behave. Unlike everyday objects that follow predictable rules, quantum particles act in strange ways. Sometimes behaving like waves, sometimes like particles, and often existing in multiple states until observed. Once again, we've already put the definition out there, but what quantum physics is the branch of physics that studies matter and energy at the smallest scales, atoms, electrons, and photons. Once again, the difference between classical physics, such as Newton's laws that work for cars, planets, and baseballs, things of that nature. Quantum physics takes over when things are tinier, when their certainty breaks down and probabilities rule. That's where quantum physics takes over. One thing we've talked about was the concepts that would be like very critical to understand when you're studying these fields, which is wave-particle duality. How that is interesting to me and how that should be interesting to you is the duality of the scriptures that I've indicated in multiple teachings relative to me, my Davidic line, and even some members of my own varied DNA, my twin brother. So wave-particle duality. Particles like electrons and photons can act like waves, meaning spreading out or interfering, or they can act like particles, localized hits on a detector. And again, the superstition within this particular concept is a particle can exist in multiple states at once, like Schrodinger's cat being both alive and dead until observed. Entanglement. Two particles can be linked so that changing one instantly affects the other, even across vast distances. Uncertainty principle. You cannot know both the exact position and the momentum of a particle at the same time. Nature imposes limits on precision. Observation effect. Measuring or observing quantum system changes is state. Reality is influenced by interaction. I'm going to give just a practical example of number 3, which would be entanglement. Two particles can be linked so that changing one instantly affects the other, even across vast distances. Now, when we were in about 7th or 8th grade, I think it was the 7th grade, and my brother can comment to this. he was playing football on the field, and I, for whatever reason, was late to a class that day. So I had to be in what was called DMC. Not DMC, but after school detention hall. Because I didn't get in trouble, it was just late. So I was in there writing. I'm left-handed. And I'm writing a lesson, doing what I'm doing, and all of a sudden, I could not hold the pencil that I was writing with. My hand just seized up and it numbed up completely. 2 minutes later, a kid of our school ran in and came and found me, and he's like, "Hey, Willie, you gotta come quick. Your brother Billy, he broke his wrist." Come to find out, it was his left wrist. What's his right wrist? I can't remember which wrist it was. The point I'm making is, we are two atoms that split at the time of birth, or the time that the process of God breathing himself, the God particle, into us. He caused the causality, he caused the situation to where our atoms split, and that's a scenario that plays into entanglement relative to our motion and its emotional dispositions. He can sense things about me, I can sense things about him. Vice versa, it's physical entanglement, where he was playing football on the football field, probably, I'd say maybe 100, 200 yards away from where I was on the school property at Laba Junior High. I mean, where we were at DMC was on the, classroom side, and the football field's on the other side of the, area. So it was interesting. I'll just say, or we were closer to the street, if you will, and the football field is closer back to the bayou, if you know the familiar with the area of Laba. So we weren't exactly, within 5 feet of each other. It was this totally different environment, totally different situation he was doing. I'm doing academic stuff, he's doing athletic stuff. Yet the entanglement played into the factor of me not being able to write and him actually physically having a broken wrist. So very interesting stuff that, brings to my remembrance, the Holy Spirit does, which is another element that ties into the interest of why I like to do it. So, just wanted to bring that into it. And again, as by way of review, why these things matter. Because the quantum physics, quantum mechanics study, that field has resulted in technology leaps and bounds. The quantum mechanics underpins lasers, semiconductors, MRI machines, and quantum computers. A lot of us use artificial intelligence, and that is spawned by the study and deep observation of quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Philosophies, it does support that. As by way of review, it changes our ideas of reality, determinism, and causality. Einstein famously stated his randomness, stating that God does not play dice, but experiments proved otherwise. Interesting element, right? And then we add why it matters on the cosmic scale. Though it governs the smallest particles, quantum physics helps explain stars, black holes, and the structure of the universe. So, minuscule level, macro level. Micro level, macro level. That's what quantum physics is the study of, essentially. Again, by way of analogy, Ant-Man, what could he do? He go down to the particle level, then he could go to the giant level, right? That was an analogy. Spiritually speaking, Hollywood was trying to give us an analogy. So, again, we discussed that some analogies of this would be, we just gave one in Ant-Man, that's like a Marvel type analogy, typology of quantum study, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and Ant-Man. And then you've got a coin flip. The quantum state is a coin that's either heads or tails, one or the other. Quantum particle is like a coin spinning in the air, existing in both states until it lands. Head and tail. Another analogy is light traffic versus quantum probabilities. Classical physics is like light traffic, red or green. Quantum physics is like a light that's red and green until you look, then it chooses. The last analogy we gave was like a friendship bracelet, entanglement. I also gave in another analogy to myself. But the friendship bracelet analogy is 2 bracelets made from the same thread, cut apart but still connected. Tug one, the other responds instantly. Alright? So, in summary, quantum mechanics is the science of the very small, where the certainty gives way to probability. It teaches us that particles can exist in multiple states, be mysteriously connected across space, and change when observed. Far from being abstract, it powers the technology we use daily and it reshapes how we think about reality itself. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be going into later teachings that is really just an observable scientific method of things that scientists are saying and observing and predicting relative to potential alien activities coming into our atmosphere or our realm, and how that may correlate with the biblical thread as relates to eschatological end-time outlooks. And it's just conjecture, just having conversations, right, guys? I mean, hey, I've told you who I am, and I've claimed to be in the Most High God, the Davidic lineage, and these things, again, are just pure conjecture at this point until proven, such as observable science, such as some of the concepts that are related to quantum physics. You gotta observe the thing to see if it actually comes true. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day.